Hello and welcome to Sex, Psychics and Psychedelics, Discovering Inner Liberation. My name is BananaJane Garnett. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, a lover of freedom, and a relentless explorer of the mind. Please come join me on my journey in hot pursuit of inner illumination and liberation. For more about me, you can find me at the BananaJane on Instagram. Now let's dive in. It's my great pleasure to share with you my conversation with Julie Hunter. We went all over the map, from the politicians who are seeking her help to the spiritual function of COVID to how to find a psychic that's right for you, along with dealing with uncertainty in general. Julie is a very wise and powerful woman who is completely unique, and it is just a delight to share her with you. Hello, darling. How are you?
Hello.
It's a fucking comedy show right now. I'm just like slipping on wires, and I've turned my closet into this tiny little recording thing, and it's just a joke. But,
I love it. Oh, that's fantastic.
And
yes.
I'm getting a little sneak into your house. Actually, let me pin you so I can see the whole thing. But
yes. And we had to switch venues from my office to my home because I had a ceiling cave in the office yesterday morning, and I'm like, oh,
you're kidding
that's
me.
not going to work.
It caved in?
Yes, we had I guess there was some kind of plumbing leak, and then there was this little crack, and I told the manager, this is a little crack, and he's like, oh, it should be fine. Boom. And then he's like, I'm getting a plumber. So
yeah, you don't want to be hanging out in the middle of all of that. That sounds like the kind of thing that's just happening, well, like globally at the moment, doesn't it?
It is, yes.
Not to start on a heavy note, but, I'm just like, wow.
Well, no, but it's really true. Somewhere I think our idea is to find our way to just say, this is all right. Mm-hmm. To be okay with obstacles, to be okay with things that are different, things that are taking us out of our normal path. And somewhere that actually seems to be when I connect with the guides and I ask for the people in front of me about what is there for us to know, or for this person in particular to know, it's become resoundingly a theme that says, be flexible, become like water, and then we'll actually be able to transmute ourselves like water. We can have the solid part of water, as in ice, or the fluid part, or the vapor part. And they're saying, be flexible with all of these things. And kind of we as a race can come up and be that part that is ethereal and physical at the same time. So that seems to be sort of the challenge. And even things like having your ceiling fall in is part of that, okay, be flexible.
Right. And literally structures kind of rearranging themselves in front of our eyes.
Yes.
It's funny because I noticed when I was writing to you about, the kind of things we would be talking about, I was in this kind of, anxious, get things done mindset. And then then I signed off something like, oh, let's have fun and see where the river takes us. And then I noticed my energy really shifting in that. I'm like, oh, I'm always better when I'm in flow and in the idea of fun and welcoming the idea of not knowing instead of controlling.
Right. It's that not knowing part. It's sort of, if you've gone where you've been there before. It's go where you don't know so that you can go find something new.
Yeah.
And discover that which is new there. So yes, and I'm just seeing that everywhere. It's just everywhere. And even in the, with the political scene, it's like we think we knew what America stood for. And interestingly, with a couple of my clients who are in politics, they have been challenged by this whole dynamic, and seriously challenged. And I have clients on both sides of the aisle. I have some very Republican politicians as well as very, politicians who are Democrats, and they both from both sides are saying the same thing. I've had to go in and truly find, what do I believe?
They're saying that, and they're saying they have to go more deeply inside. Is that?
Absolutely. Yes. And to see, where do we stand? Who am I? And what's been fabulous is it is with, it sounds quirky, but as I am a psychic, that's my job to go with the quirkiness, it's with the guidance of those who have gone before. in one very specific instance, Abraham Lincoln came through to one of my Republican clients and said, here, this is where we need to go. This is where we need to be. You need to shift.
What was the this, if you don't mind me asking, what was the this in this case? Like, this is where we need to go.
Well, actually, specifically, it was with the notion of very recently what came up with the demonstrations, the Trump demonstrations, and the notion that is, as a people, it is our job sometimes to demonstrate. It's almost our responsibility as citizens to say, here, I have a voice and I would like it to be heard. So that's important. But at the same time, it is important to know that there's a line, there's justice, there's appropriateness, there is correctness, there's the notion of what is true in this, and to adhere to that, and to say, if you think you've been, as an example, in his case, he was pro-Trump, 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 pro-Trump. And then he's like, but we lost the election. And he had to make a turn to, we lost, and I'm going with that. And that's where his call was to go, was we lost the election. Now what do I do? And what he had to do was stand for truth, stand for what the United States was built upon, and say, here, this is what I hold to be true. And we lost, and I'm going with that and standing on that side. And it was one of the most courageous things I've seen someone do, is to take their belief, which was so steadfast, and say, yes, but can I go along with the violence and along with the coup and as a lawmaker, he said, no, I can't. And it was amazing. And that was that flexibility. That was, this isn't what I wanted. This isn't what he thought, but he went with it. And it was, oh my gosh, amazing. And Abraham Lincoln was right there. So it was that really fun part. It was like, oh my gosh, wow. And what was so wonderful was he said I didn't want necessarily everything that happened to me in my life either. But here he went, and he's one of our greatest leaders. And so it was really amazing to know that inspiration comes from beyond and really helps us make a choice. And those choices make a difference.
Yeah. I'd love to know a little bit more about you. I only know you as this incredible, magical creature who I've received blessings from. Yes.
Well, I don't know that I'm an incredible, magical creature, but that is lovely. That's a wonderful thought. But I will just tell you a little bit about me. I was born in Philadelphia, but I only stayed there for a year. And all I remember from Philadelphia is we had green carpet. And that's the extent of my knowledge about my first year of life. But so I was raised here in Los Angeles, and I went to school here and went to college here and never moved away from Los Angeles. So I'm an Angelino. This is it. But I started meditating. And the reason that I meditated was because in my early to mid 20s, I had a part in me that said, truly, most profoundly, I want to know who I am, and I want to know who God is. And I really want to know. And it wasn't one of these casual questions. It was deep from the core. And the answer began to bubble up. And I have to say, it was one of the most painful experiences of my life. I felt like a meat cleaver came through and just filleted me. And I'm like, it was a year of being absolutely raw, because it was the understanding of, okay, you really wanted to know, well, here. And here was, you have to let go of who you think you are. You have to let go of preconceptions and allow that you're something else.
I want to know a little bit more about the context. First of all, did you have a religious background or any kind of spiritual background?
Yes, I was raised Catholic.
Okay. Okay. And then,
happily, there was no conflict with, people saying, oh, being a psychic was wrong or anything of that nature. I didn't have any of that. I just found that in my religion, it wasn't for me holding enough. Like I had to reach beyond.
Yeah. what
I was taught.
So were you going through a challenging time and then you couldn't get your needs met by existing religion? Or what was the context of that very serious question that you asked?
I was truly in my early 20s and I didn't want to, it's like you start choosing do I move out? I stayed at home for my college years. So do I move out of the house? If so, how do I live? By whose rules? But, prior to that point, and it was very late, I was kind of late in that, but, it was sort of my house rules. I lived by them. I really wasn't in conflict with those, but it was that was like the notion of, okay, if I'm going to take on my life, well, how do I do this? Even to the stupidity of, do I drink milk or do I not? Am I, just these unusual questions.
We're all dealing with that in Los Angeles. Do I eat milk? Do I eat bread, etc.?
Yes, right. It sounds crazy. I was just thinking though, like if I'm going to live this life, I want to live it. And I wasn't suicidal thinking I wasn't going to live, but I'm like, as I'm taking the launch, I want to launch on a path that was the highest. And so I said, God, look, that's it. You have to help me here. And I'm steadfast and I need your help. And I want to know these things. And I had the audacity to ask, I guess. So I got the answer.
And that's when the sort of the meat cleaver experience happened?
Yes.
So the split between inside and outside, who you thought you were. And
Yes, totally. That split happened. And I was very open, very raw. And then it began to fill in. And then in truth, at one point, I started meditating. And what actually happened was this light came. And like I felt something open, a light came and settled in my heart center and said, here, this is yours. And it will never be taken from you. And I felt whole.
Wow.
And from there, I have operated ever since.
Did you know at the time you were being given your life path?
I would say yes. I was given my life path at that point. I didn't call it psychic. I didn't know, but I knew that whatever it was going to come from the heart and going to come from the side of us that is divine.
I'm obsessed with light and I just love to know a bit more about it. Like what color was it? How did it feel?
Oh, it was, I would say white, but it wasn't a pure white. It actually had some kind of fire to it. It was orangey, red, white, yellow, orange, red, all of those colors. And I would say that it felt like a flame. That was the imaging that I kind of got from it, it felt like a flame. From there, it sequentially, or, it just actually coincidentally, it was people said, what do you think about this or this? Or could you ask, I know you meditate, could you ask in your meditation something for me? And I'm like, sure, I'll ask for you. And I would no intention of being psychic or having that be my career at all. But it was just people would come and ask. And then they say, well, can my mom call you and have you do that thing for her as well? Like, okay. So then I wound up, that's how it all began. And I wound up finding that, at the time I was having a whole different working path. And I thought,
what was that? I'm really curious.
Well, I staffed a medical facility. So I was a human resource person. And and I would go home and work, and give readings and do this, on the weekends. And I thought, wait, there's a time for a shift here. So I made that shift.
I had assumed that your background was in Hollywood because coming to see you feels like this you're in Hollywood, first of all, but it's also this very kind of beautifully curated theatrical experience. So I thought maybe she was an actress. I don't know.
Well, I did major in drama in college. So I absolutely did. Yes. Yeah. So that was and I did pursue acting for a while. But it was never the thing that said, this is my passion. Yeah. And I knew it wasn't. I just thought, well, this is what I'm doing. This is, and I think it is sort of, you're here, you're in Hollywood, that's what you do. Yeah. But it wasn't my passion. And I knew that. So happily I found or it found me being a psychic. Although I have to say I went a little kicking and screaming into this because I did think, I said, God, psychic, really, seriously, synonymous with the word freak. I mean, really, do you want me to put that on a resume or something when I'm applying for like a loan, honestly? And the answer was yes. Like, okay.
So you can, as much as you can read for other people, you can read for yourself.
Maybe not as well, because there's still those stumbling blocks. But yes, happily, that was sort of part of my agreement with coming over here was like, yes, we're going to speak to you. And if I don't hear you, just scream. And they do. And so it works very nicely that way.
I can only imagine. I know that from my readings with you in the past, different people have come online and some I don't know and some are well-known figures. And it seems when you're taking your download, like there are quite a few invisible people in the room. I can see you taking dictation.
Oh, yes. It gets filled with energy and people. And then I get to double check, like, is this right? Is this not? Let me ask again. And, it's just, we're human beings and we're showing up and asking questions and stumbling along the way. And hopefully we get it right. And happily from the guidance, it's like, oh no, you fell here. Let's do that. And let's change. So, and I know with you speak to guides. You have that kind. Well, maybe that's putting words in your mouth, but I know you feel you have an experience.
I don't understand my gift yet, which is one of the reasons I'm doing this. Is because to find out more, I know that. I mean, I'm technically a therapist. I'm not a traditional therapist. I'm definitely an intuitive person. Psychics have told me that I'm a bit psychic. I say I'm a little bit psychic.
Absolutely. Yes. But without question. Yes.
But I don't know how to, I don't know how to operate the machinery. And I think I'm sort of assuming it's an organic process and these conversations are going to be helping parts of me wake up. That's my selfish motivation and hoping to understand it.
I mean, that's exactly the best motivation one could possibly have, I think. Is to wake up. And that notion of, I don't know what you just said, but, I don't know and I'm finding it. I think that's the best way to approach anything is, I don't know. And let's see.
Yeah.
And just allow.
I like that you use that word because it's my favorite. I'm not a mantra person, but this word allow is really good for me. Whenever I say it, I'm like, I can breathe. Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. And, what I found with, kind of allowing the voices to come through, allowing the information to come through, it's a big deal. And, part of the big deal is to take that word doubt and rather than put it aside, which I found doesn't work so well with me. It's like, okay, if I keep battling doubt, nothing comes through. And if I say doubt, just come with me.
Yeah.
Just, all right, sit right next to me. We're going to doubt this, but I'm saying it anyway. And I'm putting doubt, right, is like, sit with me. And we're still saying it. And then it allows like, oh, well, something does come through and you find you're right in that flow again.
Do you see doubt as an entity, a figure? Or are you just addressing?
Sometimes, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. It's sort of, and I know that it isn't necessarily, but it does personify sometimes for me. And it's just like, okay, pack your bags. We're driving to, we're taking a journey. We're going to go do this. And it's like, okay, I know we're on board, but just know I'm going to, I'm here. I'm like, oh, I know you're here.
Well, exactly. It makes itself very clear, doesn't it?
Yes. Yes.
So I've been learning a bit about internal family systems. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's basically like the self is made up of different parts that are like a family. So it's internalized. So doubt would be a part. The confident part would have a part. The internal mother, the internal child. There can be as many characters as you like, but it's an interesting way of working because it reframes self as a kind of collective.
Yes.
Self is an internalized village
Yes.
There isn't one entity that is existentially you. You are a collage of these different parts or a piece of music that has different instruments playing. And the goal is to have these parts working in some kind of harmony, or at least not at each other's throats all the time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So you can resolve, or maybe, healthy families where you can have conflict and you can resolve it. So I wonder if you go with that notion that there isn't a kind of singular self.
Absolutely. Yes. 100%. And when we really see that there are multiple expressions, then we can go help the expression that we might have gotten something in, that's holding an incorrect notion, or at least a notion that could be updated.
Right. Yes.
When I take a look often in the readings, the guides will say, there's a block here with this person, but the block isn't with this adult who's 57. It's really with the person who is 4. And so they ask you to make yourself 2 different people, to take the 57-year-old and go speak with the 4-year-old who said, oh, no, I'm not supposed to do this. And then have the 57-year-old say, yes, but you weren't then, but here, welcome now. And it's really that merge of selves then, to take the self that exists at 4 and to give them the knowledge that the self at 57 says, I know this, I can help you. And I see that in this lifetime as well as in former lifetimes. It's across time, and it's across definitions of Julie or Jane, or it's amazing.
Right. So we're in this kind of constantly shifting interpersonal, trans-dimensional landscape.
We really are. Yes. As an example, in a relationship, when one person does their work and clears, because they're related so intimately with their partner, suddenly their partner has like, oh, I'm just behaving very differently. Not because they did their work exactly, but because the work is being done and we are interconnected, and they're the beneficiary of that.
Right. So is this a kind of a top plate approach? You just deal with whatever part is coming up at the time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Instead of trying to fix the whole thing. I mean, I think I don't know if this is the same for you as a psychic as for me as a therapist, but people appear to me with their stories about the past and why they're in pain today. And it's an interesting sort of balancing act, because there are these parts from the past that need to be addressed. But also I certainly find in me a really strong urge to help people kind of update and see that they're not victims, and that that they've got an unwritten slate in front of them.
Oh, how fantastic. Yes. Yes.
But it's not easy.
No. Right. And it takes a lot of inner work. It takes a lot of awareness to say, oh, right, I'm carrying something. Let me let that go. That doesn't apply. And it's kind of a constant if we can remind ourselves that we're writing anew.
Right, exactly. And writing anew all the time. And I think that might be a crazy and overwhelming idea, but I find attachment kicks in just wherever. It's like white on rice, So you'll think, I'm letting go of an old storyline. Great. And then a new one kicks in, which is, oh, I'm doing so well and I'm progressing in this way that I get to feel good about. And then that way that you were progressing, that you got to feel good about, slips away from you. The ceiling caves in, something else happens.
Right.
And then you're like, now what does this mean? And then it's easy to create another story like, oh, I'm back to square one. I never do this and I never advance and I never. So it's sort of, I feel like this unlearning process.
I think it is an unlearning half the time. Yes.
Okay. So in terms of guides, did they always show up for you, different figures at different times? Very
often I don't get the figures or the names or the like Abraham Lincoln or that type of thing. I get sort of a voice that speaks with as a collective. And I can hear the undertones of whispers of we're all talking, we're all discussing, and then it like comes forward with here we're, so it's like there's one spokesperson that gives here's the answer. And it's really more, here's the decision. But occasionally, then they do individuate and say, by the way, here's my name or here's who I am. And that's usually when there's the invitation to have a one-on-one dialogue then to say, oh, here, let's be more friendly. I recognize you as the person named Jane. Mm-hmm. And so this being named Adam is going to speak with you now, and we're going to be friends on a personal note, as opposed to sort of, can I get the information? Yes, you can get the information, and here goes. And it's always done with love, but it's when they individuate out, it's because I want to have a dialogue and I want to have a friendship and a camaraderie.
I think I understand. So there'll be a kind of a group consciousness or voice, and then one will step forwards as the one who's going to relate to you. And how do you know to trust? Are you already in a state of complete trust? Have you already barricaded the shit out? How does that work? Yeah.
No. So absolutely. My rules. When I said, yes, I'm going to do this. And I say my rules was because they said, we'll set up what's comfortable. I said, okay, I'm going to connect, and I'm going to connect with the person's highest self and the divine and the guidance around them. And so I make that connection. And when I make that connection, then what I get is what I deliver, basically. That's what I give. And my job is to do this without the word doubt, saying, oh, no, that's just so wrong. Just no. So that's my job, is to say, in that space, this is whole. This is the highest and the best for that person.
I see.
Then I disconnect and let go. And then past that, it may be, whatever information I hear is maybe my head, maybe something else. And so it very, I make the connection time, the time where that is something that is real and that I can count on. And then past that, it moves to, normal everyday clothes.
Okay. So you're not lying in bed getting visited by spirits.
No. And that was one of my things in the beginning. I'm like, okay, now that we're on this page, you're not allowed to show up at the foot of my bed at night glowing and saying, by the way, Julie, how about this? Just don't do that. That's going to freak me out. Cool though it may be, it will also freak me out. So we're not going to do that. And so one night there was a hand that came through the wall, and it was just a hand. This was in the early beginnings of my becoming sort of more aware. And that was what triggered me, actually, because the hand came through and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And I knew it was an invitation. And I said, okay, I'm going. But then after the hand came and said, hand is good, but whole body, any kind. No, that was when I had to put up the new.
Was the hand a lifelike hand, or was it more like a symbolic hand?
It was a symbol, but it was a very clear, like I sat up, I'm touching my face, my eyes are open, and there is a very large kind of ethereal hand.
Was it the palm?
It was like an
offering?
Like an offering. And so, yes, that was it. Like, here, take my hand. I'm like, I can do that, but don't show up in person. Just, yes. Right. But it really was. It was all part of that. Okay, I'm here if you'll accept this.
Yes, but on my terms. Yes, but I'm a participant.
And happily, that was kind of what they said was, we're not trying to freak you out. So tell me what, work with us.
Yeah.
And that was how it progressed, was work with us. Yeah. And that's why with some people that a voice will come through to them, and it's individuates and say, well, by the way, I'm your guide. It's here, work with me, tell me what your questions are, what your fears are, what you want, so it's more personal and intimate sometimes when the guides step out and make that introduction.
I guess guides appear on different levels. I've sort of started to notice, for me, it's animals appear in a kind of reoccurring, like symbolic way. I'm like, oh, there's the Black Panther again. Okay. It's almost like feeling it like slinking along beside me. I'm like, wow. And then, I'll scurry to the internet and like Google animal totems, and I don't know what else to do with it really. But sometimes I'll hear a voice, like a little like voice that will feel like it comes out of nowhere. So I feel like I get these little hints and gestures, but how is it for you? Is it auditory and visual and sensory, or?
It is mostly auditory for me. That's my dominant sense. On the other hand, yes, I will also just get a feeling. So it's more sensory in terms of a feeling and auditory. I don't get visual so much, except that the voice will describe what it looks like. So it's more for me in the notion of the voice saying, yes, it's a tall tree and it looks this way,
right,
but I don't see it visually. I hear it. So kind of like you're listening to a book on tape telling you that it conjures an image, but it isn't, it's in the head and it's not visual sight for me. That's
so interesting, because I was thinking of images that you've delivered in our readings before that have been so precise, and to think that wasn't coming as a visual is that's really interesting.
They paint their pictures for me with words.
That's a lot of words going on there, Julie.
It is, yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, so I want to make sure that we cover this, because I think this is especially for people who don't see psychics and might be afraid to see psychics. There's always there's that fear of what if something bad comes up. And I've actually seen psychics before where they've predicted deaths and then they haven't happened. And I've spent this time worrying that someone I love is going to die. And so what about that? What do you do with that sense of, I guess, foreboding when it appears, or doesn't it appear for you? How do you handle that, the shadow side?
Well, I dedicate the reading for the highest and the best. And that's the filter through which the information will come. As I have learned through time is, all kinds of stuff can come through, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the highest and the best for us to hear or to know or to perceive, or it may exist in the realm of maybe rather than this is an actual. So there are times when like as in perhaps the prediction of someone's passing, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Then you prepare yourself for that. And even if it doesn't manifest, something needed to be gained in the preparation of this that said, I gained something that I needed that then makes a difference for me in the future somehow.
I see.
Usually the guides don't send you down that weird zigzag journey, but it has happened. But mostly the idea of dealing with the things that are foreboding is, if we go in with the intent of it being for the highest and the best, then we take that. And usually what the guides say is, I'm giving this to you for a reason. I'm giving this to you so that you can learn this, or so that you can help them do that. Or so usually it's one or the other. It's either A, and by the way, you can avoid this by doing A, B, C, D, and E. Oh, so I don't have to do that. No, you don't. So often they'll give instructions to say, did you know there's a hole here? Now you can walk around it. So here's a way. Or if it's inevitable that you fall into it and they bring this up in a reading, then the deal is to know why. What is there for me to learn? What is there for me to know? What is there for me to know in advance so that I can navigate this better?
Yeah, instead of my default position, which is like, oh shit, is this going to happen? Or did they get it wrong? Are they right and it's bad? Or is it wrong and they're bad? Or, you know what I mean? It's like the choice of two bad options. And yeah, I see that you're promoting more of an open response. And then that brings me to a bigger question, which is how malleable is the future?
Absolutely malleable, which was exactly the next thing. Is that's kind of where they are. Is like, it's not written. There are very few things that are absolutes. So they'll often tell you, did you know there's a hole here so that you can walk around it, or so that you can fill it in and say, oh, yes, I'm not going to do this, and but somebody else might trip here. So it is malleable. It is for us to make. It's for us to live. And if it wasn't, then there's no reason for us to have this incarnation, because it's been and done. But we are here, and we're here with that free will choice that says, use this, learn, grow, evolve, and create. And that is what we do. So the role, I think, sometimes is to go and to see what are the possibilities and how might something happen. And if I'm looking for a solid, well, maybe that's not, or maybe what I need, so tell me what's going to happen. And from the guide standpoint, their thought more is, what would you like to happen and how do we help you get there?
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I was on a psychic's website recently, a psychic that I know who I'm hoping to have on this show, who's great. And then there was one of those pop-ups. Mm-hmm. And I was in a bit of a shitty mood. So when I look back on this, I think that factors in. And there was this pop-up, this kind of cheesy pop-up of like, answer 3 questions and you'll get a free psychic reading. And,
yes.
I did it partly because I was happy for the distraction because I was in this shitty mood. And then also there was some curiosity because I'm researching this topic. And I thought, who knows, right? So I went down a rabbit hole with this random guy who had some cheesy materials. And I thought, well, don't judge him based on his materials. Maybe there's something good there. There's some reason I'm wanting to go down this rabbit hole, so I'll do it. And I got a reading back from him written. Let's just put it this way. It did not set me free. In fact, my spidey sense said, this guy is leveraging your fear.
Yes.
I felt that he was saying, this is a really crucial time in your life. With the right advisor, you could be really making major progress, but there's some tricky energies in the house, and I was like, I'm not feeling great. My gut is saying no, Right.
And that is the downside. And if someone is taking the energy more for them to try to hook you into something and it's not empowering you, that's not why you showed up. You're showing up not for that person, but for yourself.
Right. So if you're really new to this game and you're trying to find a psychic, how would you even start?
Well, first of all, I guess I would always ask for recommendations. But past that, any of the red flags would be, you need to come back. Maybe you don't. You need to come back. Or in spite of what you are thinking and feeling, this is absolutely it. And unless they tell you why. So I guess that is it. For the new person looking, ask why. Ask this, if you're asking a yes or no question, great. But then ask them to inform you why. What can I learn? What can I understand from this? And if the person, even the new novice person that says, I'm going to psychic very first time, if you ask, what can I understand? That sets the whole thing on a different track.
Yes.
If that answer isn't forthcoming, you'll know from there.
Yeah, you're helping me with something because my original image of the psychic, and remember my background is sort of English, kind of academic, not juicy, fruity, spiritual, which is totally my path. But that said, so the image of the psychic there and maybe more of the British image of the psychic is, Mystic Meg looking in the tea leaves. And my mum said that. She said, we used to see psychics, but they would predict sudden violent deaths. And, that there was this sort of really sort of spooky, it's all about the prediction kind of quality. And as my psychic journey has evolved and grown, I've started to realize that the psychics that I love are healers.
Yes.
They're not just people making predictions. They're people who really want to help you on that soul level. They want you to grow and expand and be in love with your life and make the most of it. This feels very heart-based.
Yes, I think you just said it. Oh my gosh, that feels so right. I couldn't articulate this, but you just nailed that. Heart. Yes, if they're coming from love, if they're coming from the heart, if they're talking about growth and here's how you can be better, that is it. Yes, coming from the heart.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Julie. It's been so wonderful to get to talk to you in this way.
Oh, you too. Thank you so much. This has been just such a pleasure for me, Jane. Really, it's been absolutely lovely. All the best, beautiful energy to you. I was left marveling at Julie's strength and clarity.
this is a woman I feel we can all learn from, because she has been so completely bold in following her own path, which, as she admits, is completely out there. And yet at the same time, when you speak to Julie, you feel this fierce sense of groundedness. So in terms of this model of leaping into the unknown that we are all facing, I do feel that Julie is a very inspiring leader. Thank you for listening, and join me for the next one.